right, welcome back to One True Podcast, talking Baylor and Big 12 football. It's Bryce Cherry alongside Zach Smith. Zachary, how are you?
I'm great. I mean, I was expecting a bit of a sleepy week kind of this week, and then, college football never disappoints, never a day off.
Right, our special guest is certainly busy this week, Eric Bailey of the Tulsa World. Eric's been on with us before, but big week up there up in Oklahoma State country. Eric covers the Cowboys for the World. Yeah, let's just dive into it, Eric. First of all, thanks for hopping on with us. But suddenly, this Baylor Oklahoma State game looks a lot differently than it did, even 2 days ago. Oklahoma State parted ways with Mike Gundy officially on Tuesday. As we record this podcast, it's Wednesday. So we can all see the writing on the wall, that this, might happen, but it still felt like a wow moment to me. Eric, what's kind of been the sentiment among Oklahoma State fans up there about the firing, and how did it reach this point of no return?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. It's always good to talk to you. Yeah, it was just one of those situations where it wasn't unexpected. I think it was abrupt, but not unexpected. But the timing of it, 3 games in on a Tuesday, that was the strange thing. And it was building up to this. I mean, I had a chance during the press conference yesterday to talk to the athletic director. And, I asked, would this have been a better situation at the end of last season instead of going into this year? And Chad Weiberg, the AD, said, no, we thought we were going to win. We invested money into the program. We just weren't seeing the results. Our expectation level has been set high because of Mike Gundy, and we just weren't reaching them. That's why they waited 3 games in. So now Oklahoma State, let's just call it what it is. It's a fragile program right now. They've lost 11 of 12 games going back to last season. They didn't win a Big 12 game last year. Their only win is over an FCS opponent. So I'm really curious to see what happens on Saturday, because this is going to be brand new. Miraculous things happen in sports. I just don't know what's going to happen this Saturday.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question. So, Zach, was it the year before you got here? What was your first year on the beat?
2023. Yeah.
Yeah. So, actually, so it was a couple years before that. The last time Baylor played a team right after they fired a coach was 2021, when TCU and Gary Patterson split ties, and Baylor played them the very next week. Quick story on that. So this is kind of funny. John Werner and I were in the press box there in Amon Carter in Fort Worth, and right below the press box, like sitting in one of the highest rows, was this guy that looked a lot like Gary Patterson. And we were like, is he here? like that was so weird. I took a picture of him. I should go find that picture. Zach, you can put it on the pod. But it was this weird Gary Patterson lookalike guy. Anyway, TCU ended up upsetting the Bears that day, and the Baylor was 12th ranked in the country. TCU won 30-28 behind this first start ever for Chandler Morris, who is still playing college football. Started at OU, went to TCU, I think North Texas, and now Virginia. He's in his 6th college football season. College football 2025. So any chance, I mean, Eric, you kind of hit on it, but any chance that the Gundy firing and kind of like, the emotions that come with that set up a similar situation in Stillwater?
Well, there is a common denominator. I will say that Doug Meacham, the interim coach, was on that TCU staff that beat Baylor. So he's gone through this before. He's gone through a mid-year firing of a head coach. Of course, he wasn't the interim coach down at TCU, but he was on that staff. So he understands what it's like to get a season disrupted by a coaching change. And I think that'll, they'll look back at that experience. But again, we see Oklahoma State. We see what their personnel, their talent. I just don't think they have the personnel right now to really, I don't want to just write them off completely. You never know till the game's played, but there's a reason Baylor's a 21-point favorite. You look at the personnel, and all you got to do is look back at the Oregon game when Oklahoma State went up there and lost 69-3. And then they lose at home to Tulsa in back-to-back weeks. And with all due credit to Tulsa, I'm really impressed with what they're doing with their new coach Trey Lamb. But Oklahoma State was favored in that game for a reason, and you just didn't see any progress from the Oregon game to the Tulsa game. And they had a bye week too to prepare for Tulsa, and that was the product that you got. At one point, it was 19-3. So, and this Doug Meacham has been in charge of the offense at Oklahoma State. He's the offensive coordinator as well. This offense in 3 games has only produced 4 touchdowns. And 2 of those touchdowns came on the season's first 2 drives under Haas Haney, who was the starting quarterback before getting hurt in the first quarter of the first game. He led 2 touchdown drives, so they've only had 2 touchdown drives in 2 games and 3 quarters. So as much as you'd like to say miracles happen, it's going to be very difficult for Oklahoma State. And Bryce, you bring up a good point. You made me smile a little bit when you brought up Chandler Morris's name. I'm old enough to remember well, first of all, this is my first year on the OSU beat. I've covered Oklahoma for 13 years, and we had kind of a restructure, and they put me over to OSU. So I remember Chandler when he was at OU, and he was impressive. But he was behind some really good quarterbacks at the same time, so he didn't get his opportunity to play. Chad Morris, I got to know Chad Morris, his father, when he was an assistant coach at Tulsa. He was an offensive coordinator at Tulsa in 2010, so I got to know Coach Morris a little bit then. So can you imagine that family? How many different schools they have in their closet with shirts and gear? I mean, they could have a yard sale, and it'd be like going to the mall and going to an athletic store. They probably have so many different schools and shirts and stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I think I was this week old when I realized he was still playing, Chandler Morris. So pretty incredible. Zach, I mean, do you think Baylor could stumble into an upset here?
Well, I was thinking about this, and it was the timing of this whole thing was fascinating, right? Because getting fired on Tuesday afternoon or morning isn't normal. And so I'll answer your question, but a quick story, like this all happened right after we were done interviewing Baylor players on Tuesday. That's when we get them for availability. And normally I stick around afterwards to talk to someone one-on-one for a feature. That person that I was going to talk to was incredibly late. I waited more than 45 minutes for them to come out of the shower. But during that time, the entire Baylor team just was streaming out, to go get food or go to their car or whatever. And so I know some of them better than others. And so we were gathered around just talking about NFL and Micah Parsons' return to Dallas and all of that when this news dropped. And so, there was 4 or 5 players that I was talking to, and half of them immediately said, well, they haven't played 4 games, so I expect half that roster to redshirt. And the other half were like, no, I think they're going to play even harder. So I think there was a dichotomy between the two. There were, so I think Baylor is on one hand very focused. They know what's going to come. They know that the Oklahoma State roster is going to be up and ready to play. But I do think there is some, I don't want to say overlooking, but I think there is maybe a little bit of a worry on that. But at the same time, I agree with Eric. I think that the talent on Oklahoma State's roster maybe isn't up to snuff of even that TCU team back in the day. And so I think Baylor is going to come out with a win. I think they're going to come out focused. And even if in that moment there was some wavering, I don't think they'll be wavering on Saturday.
Well, Zach, you make up a great point, and it's really neat that you got to dive into the head of a college football player.
That was by accident, by the way. So Baylor people don't get mad at me.
It's a great point, though, because some players say, "Hey, 4 games, I'm redshirting. That way, I can keep my options open at the end of the year to go to another school. I want to protect myself. I'm going to redshirt." And I'm curious that, that'll be a question for Doug Meacham, because are you going to have a full roster? Or are you going to have some of these playmakers you're counting on or are there considered? Are you worried about redshirting? And you're right. There probably are some kids that said, "I'm going to play harder." Let's, and for Oklahoma State's sake, yes, the 30-down conference games have been tough, but this is a clean slate going into Big 12 play. You have it's like wiping everything clean. So that's what's interesting about it. I'm really curious, Zach. You bring up a great point. I'm glad you got to talk to those college football players. We got to delve into their mind and what they're thinking, because all 18 to 23-year-olds almost think the same when they put themselves in those shoes.
Yeah, we've already seen some future roster shakeup in terms of some guys decommitting to Oklahoma State with the Gundy firing. I mean, that's fairly normal. It's always funny when you talk to recruits that you ask them why they came to a certain place. Oh, I love the campus. I love the people. Yeah. They go for the head coach, man. I mean, that's a big part of it. One of those recruits, Jabari Thornton from here at La Vega High School in Waco, he's announced he's decommitting. So, yeah, I mean, that's part of it. But that kind of leads me to my next question. I mean, Gundy loved to build up through the high school ranks, which I think worked for a long time. Obviously, he had a ton of success there at Oklahoma State. But he was slow to embrace the NIL model, which has kind of come into college football. So do you guys think, and Eric, you probably have, more insight on this, that Oklahoma State's next hire will be in the opposite mold? He'll be an NIL guy.
When Mike Gundy was retained during the offseason, and there were discussions during the offseason about letting him go then, but they kind of stayed loyal to him and brought him back this year. Chad Weiberg mentioned that there was a healthy investment financially into the program, and they weren't backing off on that. So that was one issue maybe that came into play is, exactly how much did Mike, A, really believe in the NIL program, and B, also his scouting department, did they get the right prices for the right players? And we saw Mike Gundy, of course, Dan Lanning in week 2 really go after Mike Gundy because Mike kind of innocently, in my opinion, just said that they have money up in Oregon and they're spending it. And Oregon, they ran with that. They said you're taking a shot at our NIL. We're going to run with it. I think that's where you get 69-3 too. But I think their next coach, I think they're going to be really, really smart in hiring someone who really embraces this. And you look at Mike Gundy, he's 58 years old. He's coached at Oklahoma State 21 years, and his model had worked for the last 15 or for the first 15 years. Get a high school player, develop them. You're going to have them for 4 or 5 years, and that 4th and 5th year, they're going to be great for you. Well, that's just not the case anymore. So I think Oklahoma State's going to look for that young, dynamic coach who understands NIL, who really is energized by the recruiting game and everything that goes with it. So, we've already thrown some names out there. Oklahoma State fans really like Zach Robinson, who's the former OSU quarterback, who's the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. I will say my dark horse to this day, and I want to wait and see how this all plays out, is gj-Kinne down at Texas State. GJ's 31-12 or 13, I think, in his 3 years as a head coach at Incarnate Word and Texas State. And he's young. I think he's the kind of coach that you really want that can embrace the modern era of college football. It's a different game than the early 2000s when Mike Gundy took over in 2005. So I think that when you ask if they're going to go in the opposite mold, I really think they will. I think you're going to get an energetic coach, a young coach, someone that understands this is how the game's played now.
Fun fact about gj-Kinne, once committed to Baylor when he was a player, decommitted, and he ended up at Tulsa?
Texas. He went to Texas for 1 year and then moved to Tulsa after 1 year. And his father played at Baylor too. So there's some Baylor ties with GJ. Yeah,
Gary Joe.
And his brother was a walk-on wide receiver in 2023 when GJ came to Waco and beat Baylor. So
nice.
All the Kinnes.
Wow. All the Kinnes. Zach, I mean, what do you think? You kind of agree with Eric there?
I mean, I think that's going to be probably the first question that anybody asks a prospective head coach. And I know Eric wrote a thing where he, put out a bunch of names, and I think all of those names are certainly NIL focused. You have to give Mike Gundy and other coaches like Dabo their props for building and winning and doing a bunch of things with their system. And obviously it worked. And, you know, that worked. You have to give them their flowers. But college football is changing. And if you don't adapt, you're going to die. And certainly I think Gundy and Dabo and even Dave-Aranda to some degree have been hesitant to change. And I think it's certainly cost them. And I think moving forward for Oklahoma State, they do need a young, energetic head coach. And I want to throw another name in the ring, and that's Baylor head coach offensive coordinator Jake-Spavital, who was a GA at Oklahoma State. He's from Tulsa. He coached he was a GA at Oklahoma State when Brandon Weeden was there, and he came back to the Southwest to be closer to his family when he took the Baylor offensive coordinator job. But I'm almost going to immediately take him off that list because people I've talked to have, said that he needs to be a G6 coach before he makes that jump back up to a head coach, or be a G6 head coach before he becomes a power head coach. So I think this job is probably one of the most, people will want this job more than maybe UCLA or Virginia Tech in my mind, just because of the money that Oklahoma State can have and kind of how they can compete in the conference. And I think they're going to get a top tier head coach.
Yeah, I referenced it the other day. I can't remember when we were talking about it, but when Texas and OU left for the SEC, I actually wrote a column or something saying, I wonder if Oklahoma State and Baylor could rise and become the new power brokers in the Big 12, and that was what we thought of Oklahoma State, and look how far the Cowboys have fallen. It's really pretty dramatic. I mean, it was only a few seasons ago where they were playing for a Big 12 championship, and a few seasons before that, they were playing Baylor for a Big 12 championship, and it came down to crazy play at the last minute. Yeah, I mean, things can change quickly for sure. Eric, when you mentioned the Tulsa game, I couldn't help but think about this. So I have a friend, I went to college in Oklahoma at OBU. I have a friend who is a retired police detective in Tulsa, and he's a big Tulsa fan. And he posted on Facebook while the game was still going on, because you said it, I think it was 19-3, and of course then it got to 19-12 at one point. He was like, my whole life has been proof that God is not a Tulsa fan, but please God, just give me this one, just this one. And God gave it to him. But Mike Gundy paid the price. So I do want to throw another question in here, a little off script, but Eric, do you think, I mean, I would think so, but do you think that there's a time coming down the road where they honor Gundy and what he did in some sort of way, Ring of Honor, name on, statue? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that Chad Weiberg, the athletic director, mentioned during the press conference yesterday. There will be a time when they do celebrate Mike Gundy. And I think that's only proper for what he's done. He's built this program. He's made OSU kind of a name brand in college football, especially, he had 8 10-win seasons. He won a Big 12 championship. He's been to some New Year's Six bowls. I mean, Oklahoma State wouldn't be where they're at if not for Mike Gundy. And I think it's only fair, it's only right that they honor him in somehow. And that's his alma mater. That's where he spent 35 years in college football and more than half his life at Oklahoma State, either playing or an assistant coach or as a head coach. So yes, I think that is one of those things where they are going to honor him. It's well deserved. And Chad Weiberg went out of his way to make sure that everyone knew that during his press conference yesterday.
Well, if it is a statue, someday I'm going to get myself a picture of myself hanging from the mullet of the statue.
Well, that's gonna be interesting. I mean, I wonder if Mike has to sign off on what the hairstyle is, and how big is that hair going to be on that statue? It's going to be pretty big.
As long as it's not
So,
like the video game, his hair in the video
that
game
was,
originally.
yeah. I think that was the first question we asked him at Big 12 Media Days: is have you seen your picture on College Football 26? And we
Yeah.
showed it to him, and he was stunned.
Yeah, they did him dirty on the game for sure. That hair helmet. All right, well, guys, the Big 12 game that I'm actually most interested in this week is the one I won't see because it's on a Friday night. Zach knows my feelings about Friday night college football games. Not a fan.
Primetime spot.
Yeah, whatever. I'm talking about Arizona State hosting number 24 TCU. The Sun Devils coming off of a big walk-off win over Baylor, obviously, last week here in Waco. Meanwhile, TCU is the hottest team in the conference. They've won 7 straight, dating back to last year. Who do y'all like in this one? And does the winner have a chance to be in that mix for Arlington at the end of the year?
Well, I'm really impressed with TCU with what they're doing. I mean, you look at both schools. Both schools have outstanding quarterbacks. I mean, that's one thing that pops right out when I look at both of these schools. I watched that Baylor game last week. That was an exciting, as a viewer, that was a fun game to watch. And I think that I get a feeling that this TCU Arizona State game is going to be the same way, even though it is on a Friday night. I'm with you, Bryce. Friday nights for high schools, man. I just, and Mike Gundy did mention Mike Gundy did mention that, you just have to do what the conference tells you, and TV runs a lot of this. So, but it's going to be a great game. It's going to be fun. I really look at TCU going in there and maybe getting an upset, and I don't think it's an upset. But when you go on the road and get a big road win, you got to consider it that. So I'm just impressed with what TCU's been able to do. How the offense is incredible. I mean, the offense is the big thing. I mean, and I think TCU's passing attack will be able to exploit Arizona State a little more. I think that's going to be the key. Is TCU is going to have a really good game through the air, and I think Arizona State's defense may afford them that a little bit. So, but Friday night games, I'm not a fan, but I will find a way to try to watch this one because this is a good one too. This conference, going back to what you said earlier. I agree. I thought the Baylors and the Oklahoma States and some of these schools would be able to take over the league when OU and Texas left, and we saw Arizona State last year. So it's just really wide open. But this is going to be a fun game tomorrow night or Friday night, excuse me.
Yeah, I know, right, Zach?
Yeah, I'm taking Arizona State. Arizona State's, I've been on that bandwagon since
last year, yeah.
Before last year, and I'm going to stay on it. I think that they found something maybe in the second half against Mississippi State. And, I know that their defense against Baylor even was a little banged up, and Baylor's defense played pretty well against them, but they were still able to kind of eke out a win, and at times shut down a potent offense like Baylor has. So I think that at home on Friday night, that's, I trust that stadium will be filled and the fans will be supportive of that team because they're a really good team. And I think Arizona State's gonna beat TCU and kind of end this undefeated Big 12 Texas team, because I think Texas Tech, Houston, and TCU are all undefeated other than Baylor. And yes, I think that this is possibly a preview of what we're going to see in Arlington. I think that Arizona State, TCU, Texas Tech, Iowa State has very clearly elevated themselves to the top tier of the Big 12. And then you've got, other teams below them that are kind of fighting for the scraps. So certainly both of these teams are going to be in the mix for Arlington. And I wouldn't be surprised if we could see a rematch. We could see many different scenarios, but it's going to be a good one.
Yes, our picks, Zach, for this one don't really count because our picks, as you know, go in the paper on Saturday. Game will be over by then, so we're not picking this game this week. I guess I would take Arizona State being at home. I'm more impressed with 2024 Arizona State than I was 2025 Arizona State. They're good. I do think Cam Skattebo took them to another level last year, with the combination of him and Sam Levitt and everything that they could do. That's no knock on the backs they've got, but he was just special, you know. I mean, he's getting a shot in the NFL now for a reason. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if TCU wins this game for sure. I thought, again, they're a good team, Arizona State, but I thought Baylor beat itself in that game as much as Arizona State beat Baylor. And, you know, it really wouldn't surprise me if Baylor ran off 8 wins in a row. Gonna have to, I don't know, they're gonna have to do something they haven't done all year, which is play a complete game, you know, put offense and defense together in one game, maybe one quarter, as Zach said. You know, but
they did it for a quarter. I mean, but is there a better game to do that than this week against Oklahoma State? That seems like a pretty good spot.
Could be the recipe for Baylor to get right, but we'll see for sure. So I guess that's a soft vote for Arizona State.
Have some conviction. What do you mean?
I really don't know. I don't know. But I'm going with the home team. So anyway, I said something about recipe, which made me think of how we usually close our podcasts. So Eric, we call it Culinary Corner. I'm not going to Stillwater. Zach is, and he's already made plans upon my recommendation to go to Hideaway Pizza. A personal favorite of mine that I try to get to anytime I'm in Oklahoma. I had my fantasy football draft in Norman a few weeks back, before the NFL season, and we went to Hideaway Pizza after. But is there any place else? Zach, you and your wife are up there for a couple days. Any place else he should check out? Obviously, I think you're going to Eskimo Joe's just for the sake of it, right?
We could be convinced. That has been previously recommended to us, but if there's a better one, then I'd love to hear.
Yeah, where should he go, Eric?
Well, Bryce, I will say Hideaway for sure. And I live in Owasso. I got a Hideaway an hour or a mile from my place.
Nice.
And when we want pizza, we go there. We get the 50-50, which are the mushrooms and the mushrooms and the cheese sticks. We get the 50-50 appetizer. It's great. So Hideaway, you can't go wrong with that, especially with the original Stillwater. But you mentioned Eskimo Joe's. Yesterday, after the press conference, me and 2 Tulsa World photographers, that's where we had dinner last night, Eskimo Joe's. And get the fried mushrooms there too. Oh, outstanding. Okay. And the cheese fries. You can't go wrong with the cheese fries.
Nice.
So you got to get cheese fries at Eskimo Joe's. So I think Bryce hit the nail on the head with 2 places. If you're going to Stillwater, those are 2 places you want to go. You want to go to Eskimo Joe's and you want to go to Hideaway. Those are 2 great places.
The way I described Eskimo Joe's to Zach was it's the George's of Stillwater. We have George's here in Waco, which is a place that a lot of people know, and I think more tourists go to than home folks. But George's is solid, and it's kind of that kind of food, like fried mushrooms and that kind of stuff, So yeah, Zach will bring back some calories with him for sure.
Can't wait. I don't know why of all the road trips that we can go on, my wife picked Stillwater, but that's what she did. So she's coming with me.
Yeah, fun times.
It's a neat little college town. It really is.
It is a college town for sure. And I will say, it'll be interesting to see what the atmosphere is on Saturday, but have been there so many times where that place was just rocking. And to me, it's one of my favorite road environments in the Big 12 because the fans are right on top of you, beating those paddles or whatever the heck they do. And with Gallagher-Iba, like backed up to the one end of it, it just seems like it bottles the noise in. I mean, Eric, would you agree with all of this?
Absolutely. And you talk about the fan support. I'm really curious what it's going to be like But I was curious last Friday night after the Oregon loss, who's going to show up for this game? They had nearly 50,000 for a Tulsa game on a Friday night. So this is a loyal fan base, and they do get loud. You're right. The paddles, the students with the paddles, and yeah, everything around it. It's going to be a fun game. So
Yeah.
maybe fun to witness. I don't know about the outcome, but it'll be fun to soak in the atmosphere for sure.
And I think it's become a tradition. Correct me if I'm wrong. If it's not an every game tradition, it ought to be. But friends in low places.
Yeah, I've heard that. So yeah, still there. Garth Brooks, of course, is an OSU alum, so a lot of Garth being played there. So yeah, I mean it everything about it. It's just a neat atmosphere. And coming from OU after covering years of OU, it's fun to experience these kind of seeing the OSU games and seeing it up front. So this has been a lot of fun for me as well.
Nice. Well, gonna date myself here for a second, but Friends in Low Places was my senior class song, which says a couple things. It says, A, how old I am, but B, where I grew up. Because that was us, man. That was us in Brenham, Texas. Friends in Low Places, getting rowdy and loud, and people getting drunk and all that stuff. Anyway, it should be fun on Saturday. Y'all enjoy it. Eric will check out Eric at the Tulsa World. Eric, what's your handle on X?
It's at Eric Bailey TW. So pretty easy. It's pretty easy to find.
Good deal. Well, thanks for hopping on, man. We appreciate it.
Guys, thanks a bunch for the opportunity.